Submitting starting lineups this Sunday. Going to be very interesting because I'd imagine that a lot of y'all are pretty much already locked up with matchups. I'd be really interested to hear what your situation is in the comment section. But nonetheless, we're going to go through. We are going to be diving in to what we have with updated Pickems to get a sense of what we should be expecting this Sunday. And also, there are a few Pickems that I do really want to look at and talk about specifically. Starting off with this Jags game, I mean, with Trevor Lawrence, you can start him at this point. They have him at 18.5 fantasy points. This actually should be one of the higher scoring games this week if you're looking at over-unders. Obviously, Etienne's a must-start guy. They have him at 14 fantasy points. What's interesting is if you're looking at how they're pricing in the Jacksonville Jaguars wide receivers here, you have Calvin Ridley still behind Christian Kirk. You have Ridley currently sitting at 54.5 receiving yards, whereas you have Kirk at 57.5. You have Kirk at about 10.25 fantasy points, Ridley a little under 10. So I would agree with this as well. I am pricing in Christian Kirk to be the wide receiver one here in Jacksonville. You can start Ridley if you want. I know the splits without Zay Jones are nuts. But the reality of the situation is it's a very small sample, and I don't necessarily know how excited we can be about it. And yes, we got to rock the University of Texas helmet. Great win yesterday. Sadly, we do not get to see them play again today, but it is what it is. We got to rock it on Saturday. Now let's go over and look at the Texans side of things, where CJ Stroud playing MVP level football at about 18.5 fantasy points, about the same line as Lawrence. I would go CJ Stroud over Lawrence. Two things that will be interesting here in Houston. One, Dameon Pierce is back, and I actually really agree with how they're projecting this out on Underdog, so I'm not going to be taking any of these Texans lines, just to let you know, but they have Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary projected to be in a running back by committee, a split backfield, with Singletary seeing the majority of the work. I would agree with this. Now, of course, that is not a guarantee. There is a chance that Devin Singletary goes out there and sees every single touch. There's a chance that Singletary dominates this backfield. And I really hope that's the case because I drafted an embarrassing amount of him this offseason. But I am not going to be excited to start Devin Singletary until we see the updated usage with Dameon Pierce in this offense. Because Singletary is not going to catch the ball out of the backfield. So remember that. Nico Collins, they have about 59.5 receiving yards. If Noah Brown were to be playing, I would say take the fewer than 59.5 receiving yards, but Noah Brown is not playing. So Nico Collins, fair line, must-start player. Tank Dell, must-start player as well. I know we saw a question in the live chat saying, am I crazy to start Tank Dell over Keenan? Yes, you are crazy to start Tank Dell over Keenan Allen. Tank Dell is going to be someone that you're starting in most rosters, of course. I think that you have him as that high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1 this week. And if you think that the matchup's so good that you need to start him over Keenan Allen, I would just go take the more than 63.5 receiving yards on Underdog or more 5 receptions. But either way, great option though, Noah Brown. What's very interesting is Matt Canada gets fired as the OC in Pittsburgh. Typically, I'd say, you know what? I don't know what to expect. I don't know if this is going to be an upgrade or a downgrade. Well, Underdog immediately moved his passing yards up. It can't really be worse than what Matt Canada was. Now, with that being said, I'm not going to be super pumped to go through and start any of these Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe Jaylen Warren is someone that you look at here. Jaylen Warren had 70.5 total yards. I'm still going to say, okay, well, let's wait and let's see the usage change between Najee and Warren, where Najee's not seeing 50% of the backfield. Now, going over to Cincinnati, Joe Mixon, still someone that you have to start. They have him at 87.5 total yards. It's going to be a bad offense, though. And while I'll admit it will be a bad offense, I still don't mind going through and taking the more than 64.5 receiving yards on Jamar Chase. Well, Chase is going to be dealing with horrendous quarterback play. You have no T. Higgins in this game. I still think that Jamar Chase is a must-start wide receiver, and I'm going to be going with more than 64.5 receiving yards. And Rachaad White, must-start player, 84.5 total yards. Mike Evans, must-start guy, 62.5. And then Chris Godwin, you can play him. He's just been very inefficient with his volume. He's had 52.5 receiving yards in this game against Indy. And going over to the Colts here, ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Taylor, we ranked as our RB2 this week. Then the projections came out, And you see that Jonathan Taylor was only behind Christian McCaffrey with his total yardage projection at 106 total yards. So, yeah, I mean, Jonathan Taylor, I think that we are right to have him as that top 3 back, someone that you are going to have to start here. You have to start Michael Pittman. They have him at 79 receiving yards, higher than Jamar Chase. And yes, Rachaad White did get put on the injury report. Now he is questionable. So we will get back to that later today with injury updates, but I think he should still be good to go. Now going over to New Orleans, Alvin Kamara at 89.5 total yards. Going to be someone that we're starting. Olave, you're going to be starting as well. Let's skip by this. And oh my gosh, ladies and gentlemen, my stomach's messed up. God, dear, I got to go to the bathroom. But hopefully we can skim by this the best we can. Bijan Robinson, if you listened to what Arthur Smith was saying, sounds like Bijan may get a little bit more involved, still starting. Bijan Robinson still going to be benching everybody else here in Atlanta. You have Drake London at 50.5 receiving yards. So like I said, if you could pick up London as like a free throw-in wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, how he is in the community rankings on flogfantasy.com right now, I don't mind buying him. But honestly, not going to be starting him until we see otherwise. Going over to Carolina, not a single player startable outside of Adam Thielen. You now Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard splitting the backfield 50-50, even though Hubbard is the running back at 61.5 total yards currently. You have Adam Thielen at 67.5 receiving yards, going to be someone that you have to start. And dear God, ladies and gentlemen, I am about to crap in my pants. So we are going to skim by. I want to point out some Pickems that I really do like. The main one being in Baltimore. Looking at Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is going to get the bump up with no Mark Andrews. I do think that this means you have to start Zay Flowers, but they have him ahead of Jamar Chase this week. So I'm going to go ahead and say that while, yeah, we want to be starting Zay Flowers, 71.5 receiving yards or total yards is going to be too much in my mind. I mean, if you look at the amount of times that he's hit this season, like never, pretty much. So we are going to go ahead. We are going to take the fewer than 71.5 total yards with Zay Flowers here, ladies and gentlemen. But I do want to point this out. I was surprised to see it. So I do think that we are too low on him in the rankings this week. I think that if you look at the updated projections with no Mark Andrews in this offense, with how the passing volume should be distributed, you probably need to go through and you probably need to start Zay Flowers. But yes, I'm going to go drop that deuce real quick, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be live later tonight, going through and answering fantasy football questions, giving you injury updates as well. And if you wanted to check out any of these Underdog Pickems, talk about them in a little more depth later today, you can find that link in the live chat description comment section. Promo code FLOCK, 100% deposit match, plus our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers, and the Lamar Jackson special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard for tomorrow night as well. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Really do appreciate you. Really hope we get to see you in the live stream later tonight.